everyone, and welcome to, I think it's going to be one of the best episodes of Training Unleashed ever. Before we get into that, on behalf of the Learning Network, I want to thank the audience for being here. Really appreciate you. I also want to thank my sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio. Today, we have Kory Kogon, and she's Senior Vice President of Content Development and a Senior Consultant for the Frank Company. And she's working on a super special project that is actually launching today. Now, when I say today, today is the day we're recording the episode. So not the day you're probably listening to the episode, because we're not that fast in turning them around. But the 7 Habits of Effective People has been highly effective people, has been a cornerstone of my professional life, has had a huge impact on me. The training business worked actively in training. It was like something we worked on training everybody in the organization on, because they're sort of like the fundamentals. And Franklin Covey is now not relaunching the content, because the content's the same, maybe changing it to contemporize it a little bit. I'll let her tell you all this stuff. But what I really want to get in is, why now are you doing what you're doing? That maybe is a good start, because I think what we're going to do a little differently on today's show is really get into the decisions around how you produce content and the types of content you produce. So first off, welcome, Kory, and tell us a little bit about the project you're working on.
Well, first of all, Evan, thanks for having me here today. It is an exciting day. This is 2 years of work that's coming to bear, releasing what we like to call the reimagined 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So Dr. Covey, Stephen R. Covey, developed the 7 habits almost 40 years ago, and they are based completely on timeless principles and habits. And over the years, this is not the first time we've put millions of dollars into relaunching and reimagining, is that we take timeless principles and point them at timely things going on in the world, how the world is operating, the problems that are going on, etc. Because as Stephen said, the tougher the circumstances, the more important the principles and habits become. So really excited to start this now, to release this today. And what people will find in this ongoing course, where, by the way, over 100 million people have gone through one of our workshops, which is really amazing. Wow. They will find the stories, the videos, the conversation very contemporary, today's work world and personal world.
So before this interview, and I try to do this with every guest, is read the content. Now, I've read 7 Habits, I would guess at least 4 times. And I say read, I listened to the whole audiobook this weekend to get ready. So let me just start with 2 years ago. Why did you decide it was time? What made you realize? Because everyone here listening in some way is involved in training, and reinventing material or keep reusing material is a question everyone has to ask. So what was the impetus, the spark that decided that this was now time?
Oh, it's part of Franklin Covey's principles, too. I mean, we're one of the largest and most trusted leadership companies in the world, and we invest hundreds of thousands of dollars each year back into content development and new technology to help learners in the flow of work. And so the decision wasn't necessarily made 2 years ago, but we had updated the 7 habits, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And so we're always looking for what is the moment of it. Having said that, so it's not like, oh my goodness, we need to update. We know when we're going to do it again over the next few, the next 2 or 3 years, we'll reevaluate again. Why 2 years ago did we say, okay, now's the time? It was probably on the schedule, but more important, the pandemic, social media, back to the office, everything changed. And what I said to you before, Stephen's saying the tougher it is out there, the more we need these habits. But everything has changed. The way people communicate, the implementation of AI, or the coming boom of AI as that is continuing. I'll say the pandemic creating remote, hybrid, all of that. The new needs for different types of leadership and us continuing as L&D professionals and business unit leaders, getting leaders into a place where they're more about inspiring people versus working from a framework of command and control. So being highly effective under these new conditions really spurred us on to say, this is the right time. And listen, we were getting a lot of feedback from people. That's the videos, some of the things just around how we work as a society was changing as well. And based on feedback, which we're always listening to and everything that I mentioned, it was definitely time to get going. The other thing is, we know once we make the decision, particularly with the 7 habits, which is the family jewels, that it's going to take us a couple of years to really get a beautiful, comprehensive, life-changing product out there that actually will move people to achieve effectiveness in a way that helps them or encourages them to change their behavior and do something different.
In some ways, what you're doing is like practicing the sharpening of the saw, right? You're always doing that. That's not like something you do every 3 or 4 years, but you're sort of like taking what's changed in the world and said, we now need to sharpen this content, which is timeless, though. I mean, as I listened to the book over the weekend, I kept saying to myself, this is so important. This is so important over and over and over and over again. But would that analogy fit with you?
Yes, totally. I mean, even when you say, well, it's interesting because with Sharpen the Saw, one of the things in the new content, we have research in there that says 53% of people won't do something about being burned out and stressed out. Sharpening the saw, meaning we have to take care of ourselves, but they won't do something until they're already burnt out or stressed. And Stephen Covey always used to say, and always got a laugh in the audience, and being totally true, he said, how many of us, are too busy driving to stop and get gas? That's sharpening the saw, right? So, and at Franklin Covey, and we learn all the time too, up to a few years ago, we might have been waiting a little too long to update some of our stuff. So I think it's a great analogy, Evan, we are sharpening the saw because we're investing heavily in our innovations, our content, teams and stuff like that, so that we are more proactively, habit 1, more proactively getting ahead of, okay, we can see what's on the horizon. Let's get this going on the update, because it's going to take us a little while before we're running after it or reactive to it versus proactive.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of sharpening the saw, if I can make a complete promotion for the show, one of the reasons I chose to do this podcast was to sharpen my own saw, because it gave me an effective way to keep learning. And for our listeners, the show is great if you're in the learning HR operations world, as to learn new things, because we give you new things that you don't even know that you need, rather than assuming that, okay, I know I need this and this and this. Sometimes it's what you don't know you need that can be the most effective thing. So let me ask the first question. Is there a new book coming out? Is that part of the package?
So we've released the book probably 3 or 4 times now. The last time was just a few years ago. So right now, there's no new release. The current release actually has Jim Collins, if you know Jim Collins, wrote a beautiful foreword for it. But the book remains the same from the previous release, which was just a few years ago.
So tell us about what's in the release, what kind of content you created, and maybe why you chose to create that kind of content.
So the things that are staying the same, the 7 habits remain the same. The idea, and I'll can explain more, the see, do, get model, this idea of, it takes an effective mindset, moving from a common to an effective mind, to see the world differently. Let me put it in English. To see the world differently, to drive different behavior, to get a different results. That's the see, do, get model. That all stays the same, along with the provocative insights, which might have changed a bit, that drive people to change their behavior to get a different result. So all of that stays the same. The new course is more practical and more innovative. So again, over the years, if you think about training a number of years ago, a lot more talking than activity. And today's, particularly the younger generations, demand time to talk to each other, to really collaborate, to work on things together. So very innovative, very practical. So we cut back, some of the information to really zero in what people really need to know and can be moved by. We have 18 new videos that tell stories that really drive the learning home, and a real integration with both the development of our live in person, live online, full day courses in combination with 8 30-minute on-demand courses and drip sustainment along the way. So we like to say we didn't just build data or anything we do for a one time, here's a training, or I mean, if that's what you want, great, but our goal is to get to behavior change. So lots of surround sound around the current world of e-learning, drip learning, all of those self-directed learning, in order to really get to behavior change and new results for effectiveness.
So as I listen to you, I think of a term that's pretty common called blended learning.
Oh, yeah.
And is that part of it where you're, maybe doing some pre-training, then going to the course, post-training?
We're in the business of helping our clients succeed in whatever that means to them. So we do heavy diagnosis, but because we're a subscription model, all of those resources are available. And our implementation strategists work with your audience, HR people, L&D people, to design what the team of the organization, what works for them. Because I never like to say, well, you should do full sustainment. So sometimes people just need a keynote, or they just want knowledge. And so they might just want to go through the 2-day course or the on-demand. And some people want real behavior change. And so they want a blended approach where they might do a day in person. They might take some of the on-demand modules and mix that together, plus our micro learnings, which drip over a week in an automated kind of fashion. So it can be whatever you need it to be. I always like to say, depending on the outcome the team of the organization is trying to achieve. That's most important, without judgment, but all those assets are available for mixing and matching.
So starting with the end in mind is what you're saying. Yes.
Great idea. Habit 2, start with the end in mind, because our goal is not to say, here, the 7 habits is great, it launched, you should do, 2 days and it'll be fabulous. First of all, it's really hard work. Second of all, every organization has a different kind of need. So begin with the end in mind. What are the outcomes we're trying to get to? And then sort of creative collaboration, habit 6, with some synergy between our clients and us. We determine what the best approach is for what they're trying to accomplish without shoving it down their throats.
Yeah. Well, I do think that sort of embedded in all your work is the idea of engaging with clients and people in collaboration, although it didn't make it to a habit.
Synergy is creative collaboration.
Yeah, that's true.
So remember, each habit has a principle. And so for 6, it's creative collaboration is the principle behind it, that when you do collaborate and with others besides just yourself, there's a very good chance when you put a few different ideas on the table, if you're open-minded to that, you'll come out with something better. And we're always amazed at what our clients share with us and help us get better as well.
So why don't we just maybe talk for a few moments about how to actually create a habit? Because, read the book. It's a great book. Read it multiple times. Great book. Hey, everyone. I want to talk to you about Learning Network's product QuizBase. This is an amazing assessment tool, whether you're doing a quick quiz at the end of a course or you're giving a comprehensive assessment at the end of a program. This is the tool for you to create powerful and effective quizzes. Go to learning.net and check out QuizBase. Ask for a demo today. But to really develop a habit is more than that. And maybe share what your experience is working with people on, let's just, because not everybody listening is going to be able to participate in your programs. If you're just a person listening and you want to make this part of your life, how would one go about that process if you were to do it on your own?
First of all, like we've been talking about the book, there's always the book. I also want to recommend, Sean Covey, Stephen Eric's son, who is the president of our whole education division, because there's 7,000 schools around the world that participate in our Leader in Me program, which is leadership, 7 habits, plus some of our other stuff blended for young people between K to 6. I mean, it's really quite amazing. But he wrote the book, 7 Habits for Teenagers and 7 Habits for Happy Kids. So I always like to say, because Evan, you know me, I'm very pragmatic and very realistic. The real book is great. I'm amazed that you listen to the whole thing over the weekend. And if somebody wants even an easier version to get, the principles, or even work with your family, those 2 books are available as too. So you can read those. So using the books is a good way to get started on it. And then I think that's the best way. There's also some tips. You talked about how do you create a habit. Let me just put and this is not in the book. Stephen was not a neuroscientist, either am I, but I do have a certification in Neuro Leadership Foundations. And because in today's world of knowledge work, we're virtually everybody's a knowledge worker. We're paid to think, innovate, create, and execute. So I spend a lot of time on the brain. And there's other books out there, Atomic Habits, books on habits. Dr. David Rock does a lot of work on this as well, who I just adore. And he is a PhD in neuroscience. And this idea that, our brains have 2 parts, and our survival brain and our prefrontal cortex. And our survival brain likes routines. So once it knows something, it makes it a habit so it doesn't have to think. And the front of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is where we're conscious, where we make conscious decisions and where we first learn things. And once we start to intentionally learn something, our brain cells fire and rewire and recreate new connections and go to the back of the brain and become unconscious. So if you really wanted the science, which you didn't ask me for, that's sort of the process. And so we need to be really intentional about, okay, I'm learning this and I believe in this, so I'm going to practice it, because if I practice it, my brain cells are going to rewire, fire, and create new habits. So this is where we get the term conscious competency, unconscious competency, etc. Yeah. Final thing on this, let me bring it back to the 7 habits. Stephen, not being a neurologist, was doing research on perception in organizations. I won't bore you with the depth of that research, and this is 45 years ago. And he realized what he was onto around the idea of how we see the world. And paradigms was the word at the time. And from that, he created what's called the see, do, get model. I mentioned that earlier. The way I see the world determines how I behave and the results that I get. And so if you see the world like, you know what, nobody can do this thing better than I can. So my behavior is going to be, I'm going to do everything by myself. I'm going to get a result. My team isn't doing anything. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and a vicious cycle. I'm validating, see, I'm the only one who can do it. But if somebody opens my eyes to, or to perhaps I can get a different result if I'm like, you know what, it's not just about me. If I involve other people, I might get a better result. So let me practice some of the behaviors that go along with that. I'm going to invite my team to give some ideas. Oh my goodness, I'm getting a different result. Wow, this works. So the see, do, get model is the backbone model for how do I stop, see the world differently, become very conscious of that, self-aware, just habit 1, very self-aware, examine my paradigms and see if I can do something, if I can think differently to be able to do something differently to get a different result. That's the lesson of the day. If somebody just wants to leave here, try something out, look up the see, do, get model, look in the book, and start getting very conscious of how you are thinking and behaving, because that's where it all begins.
Totally agree with you. And I like to say that you're the author of your own life. And if you imagine what you want to accomplish, then you figure out how you make it happen. And the question is really, are you the author of your own life, or do you allow other people to write your story? Anyhow, I am not a neuroscientist either, and I'm not sure when I learned this, but one of the things I learned, and I do a lot of coaching with clients, is that once you get past three ideas in a session, it's more than anybody can handle. So I just would like to add, because I've coached people on the seven habits, that if you read the book and you get excited about it and read the whole book, I recommend people read a chapter at a time after and spend a week or two on each habit, thinking consciously every day, have I followed this habit? Have I used this habit? And just tackle one habit at a time and then go and wait. And is this idea, I mean, you can tell me this is terrible or you like it or whatever, but that's how I like to work with my clients when I'm introducing the seven habits to them.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. And there is, I can't cite the exact research, but there is work done on once you go more than three, you're sort of you're filling the water pitcher to overflowing, if you think about your brain.
Yeah.
And that, and you sort of said, how did we think about this? We also reduced the number of practices per habit, so it wasn't four. It was no more than three. So you had a mindset, one, what's the effective mindset? And then what are the practices or behaviors I need to really get good at in order to get a different result? So I'm with you. I also am all about spaced learning. So whether it's the book or whether you're taking the course, however you're doing it, like one at a time. Because, and again, going into your brain, sleeping on it, letting it digest, working on it is very effective for good learning as opposed to trying to cram it all in. So I'm totally with you.
Well, thank you. I love talking to you, and I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of people from Franklin Covey, and they're all consistently incredibly bright and more than generous in sharing. I think people, and including myself, would like to know how people can take advantage of this new content, because it's not like you go to the website and one person can sign off. How do people actually get access to this new content?
If you're an organization, whether you're a small organization or a large organization, well, first of all, anybody can go to our website, www.franklincovey.com. And if you're an organization or a company, again, small, medium, or large, we operate by subscription. So becoming an all-access pass holder gives you access to all of the resources, not only the seven habits, but our other solutions that may be available to solve some of the issues that you have. So all of the on-demand stuff, all of the drip learn, everything, that's there. As an individual, there are some public, and again, if you look at our website, you can click in, there's some webcasts, and not of the full habits, just overviews and stuff like that. And I think it will point you to some opportunities for some public sessions that might be being scheduled out there.
Cool. So basically, you go to
www.franklincovey.com.
www.franklincovey.com, and you have a lot of stuff. And I've been to your website. You have a lot of content on your website.
Yeah.
Or you reach out and you talk to somebody. What's the smallest size company you work with?
Again, it depends. We work with companies that are five, five. It depends on what people are trying to accomplish. But, it could be 15, 20. It really depends on what, and up to, we're in the Fortune 100. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what levels of, leaders or individuals you're trying to work with. So it takes diagnosis for that.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is I think most people think Franklin Covey, I got to have 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, because they're a big company. And what you're saying is that's not the case.
No, actually, we work with many. Again, we work with small companies, large companies, so we're equipped to do all of that, and across sectors. So we have a government division, we have an education division. Yes, it could be any size. We're willing to talk with any size organization to see if it's feasible for for anybody. I recently worked, and again, it might be a small thing, but I worked with a company that was 25 or 30 for a couple of sessions. That was what was important to them. So, everybody needs something, and, we try to work it out for people.
Yeah. And you also have great consulting teams which help companies that don't know assess what they really need. You help create the end.
Right. We have a couple of armies out there. One is what I said before, the implementation strategists. So you have the opportunity. Everybody here has full-time jobs that's listening, right? And so it's not just about Franklin Covey. You're doing a lot of stuff internally with others, your whole day job. And so our implementation strategists are there to help diagnose what are the opportunities in your company. Maybe they're problems, maybe they're challenges, maybe it's improvements. And then help piece together from our entire portfolio what is the best design of what we call an impact journey over the short term, the longer term. We have companies that are contracted with us for 7 years. It depends what you're trying to accomplish. We also have a team of consultants, delivery consultants. So these are people that if you need somebody to come in and this is what they do professionally, is teach 7 habits or facilitate some kind of session, they can do that as well. So we have any kind of resources for any size company at Franklin Covey.
Oh, that's fantastic. You've been a great guest, but we always end the show with, if you had one tip to share, what would your one tip be?
I'll keep it with the 7 habits. And one of my colleagues reminded me this the other day, is people think about, well, the 7 habits is, about effectiveness in individuals. It is. We all, regardless of our title. And I opened up by saying we consider everybody leaders in the company. And the way the world is now, the way to be effective overall is asking ourselves 2 questions. Are we able to lead ourselves first? Are we showing up as responsible and credible out there? And using that as a base, are we able to lead others? So whether you're an individual contributor, a parent, a community member, or the CEO of a company, do I show up as highly credible? I'm responsible. First 3 habits, the private victory. And am I able to relate to others and bring everybody to creative collaboration and excitement in order to get amazing results in this crazy world we're living in today?
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you. I'm going to just say something, and I have over 200, I've never said it before, but in my opinion, it is a core fundamental part of anyone's education on leadership and management. Everyone should read this book. It really is timeless, life-changing kind of experience. On behalf of the Learning Network, I want to thank you as a guest. I want to thank the audience for listening. I really want to thank the audience for listening. If you like the show, please share with your friends. Thank our sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio. Also remind everyone we now have a YouTube channel, and it is Training Unleashed Network. And go and subscribe, and you can watch us. Of course, you can watch us on C-Suite TV. Everyone have a fantastic day.